Hey guys, we're going to be going through a lesson today on properties of exponents. Um, Obviously, if you're at home, you will not be using a marker board, but you do need a piece of paper out. We'll be doing some of them as notes, and then some of these you will need to make sure that you pause the video, and you will need to do the problems and then check with the answer and the work that follows. Okay, so without further ado, let me get rid of my ugly mug. Bye, ugly mug. Now, properties of exponents. So here's the first property we're going to focus on. Okay, and it's a multiplication property. So you see all these words and gibberish up here. Okay, the general rule. Okay, so we look at this problem right here: b to the third times b to the fifth. Okay, so remember a couple details. The b is a base. It's a base value, and the 3 is an exponent. Okay, so if you have the same bases, they're both b's being multiplied, there is a shortcut. Okay? If the b's are being multiplied, the shortcut is you are allowed to add their exponents. So then this would end up being b to the 8th power. Okay? Similarly here, we have g's being multiplied. Okay? So since the g's are multiplied, you're allowed to add those exponents. 4 plus 6 will then give you g to the 10th. Okay? I do want to make sure we hear this. Okay? Numbers are just numbers. Okay, so like when we're going through these problems, I do want you to understand the 5 is a base number. You're going to hear me talk about base numbers. The m is a base exponent. The only exponent in this problem is 3, and it only applies to the m. Okay, so let's go through a couple examples. You will see a method that you can use to organize it. Okay, not everyone does it that way, but I'm going to show it to you that way. So here's our first problem. Okay, so we have r to the 4th times negative 12 r to the 7th. Okay, so the first thing that I would do on this problem is we want to organize. So the base numbers are first. And I only have one base number that is a negative 12. It's the only base number in this problem. Okay, and then I have base r's. So I have an r to the 4th, and I also have an r to the 7th that are being multiplied. Since negative 12 is my only base number, I can start my answer with negative 12. Okay? And then r to the 4th times r to the 7th, I am going to add those exponents. 4 plus 7 is 11. And that would be my answer. Negative 12, r to the 11th power. That's it. Let's look at another problem. Okay, so we have a little bit more information on this one. Okay, we have 6cd to the 5th in the first parentheses times 5c to the 5th d squared. Okay, so first things first, base numbers. I have a 6 and a 5. Those are base numbers. Okay, those are getting multiplied together. Okay, they do not go with the c's and the d's. Okay, those are just regular numbers, 6 times 5. The c's, this first c does not have a number showing as an exponent, so that means it is c to the 1st. It is helpful to write that because a lot of people forget the 1 there. So I have c to the 1st, and I also have c to the 5th. Okay, my base d's, I have a d to the 5th, and I also have a d squared. Okay, so bases that are numbers first. So 6 times 5 is still 6 times 5. 6 times 5 is 30. Okay, just multiply the base numbers together. Now, we use our rules with our base c's. C's are multiplied, add the exponents together. 1 plus 5 is 6. D's are multiplied, add your exponents together. 5 plus 2 is 7. And there's my answer. Okay? Now, for the next couple problems, I want you to try a couple on your own. So I'm going to have you pause the video when you see it, do the problem on your paper, and then play the video, and you will see the answer. So here's the first one. Go ahead and pause the video and complete this problem. Okay, for this one, my base numbers are 5 and 4, and my base x's are x squared and x to the third. So remember, 5 times 4 is still 5 times 4, 20. X's are multiplied. I can add their exponents. 2 plus 3 is 5. And there's that one. 20x to the 5th. For letter B, go ahead and pause the video and complete letter B. Okay, bases that are numbers. I have a 3 and I have a negative 2 that are being multiplied together. Then I have my x's. Remember, that's x to the first. And I have x squared. And then I have my y's. I have a y squared and a y to the third. Okay, so base numbers first. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. X's are multiplied. Add the exponents. 1 plus 2 is 3. And for the y's are multiplied. Add the exponents. 2 plus 3 is 5. And there's my answer. Okay, so that's the multiplication property. Now, the next property we're going to look at is the power property. Okay, so this is where we have an exponent raised to another exponent. Okay, so this is what a power property problem looks like. Okay, this is a very simplistic one, this particular one, because it only has one base value in there. But the general rule would go this way. I have b to the third raised to the fifth. Okay, so I'm allowed to multiply those two exponents together, 3 times 5, and I get my answer as b to the 15th. Okay? Now, you will see ones that are a little bit more complex, sort of like what you see here. So notice there are more than just one base. I have 1, 2, 3 different bases in this problem. All right, so watch how this is done here. So we're going to take our negative 2, and that one gets raised to the fifth. It ends up being all of them doing that. The x to the first gets raised to the fifth, and the y to the third gets raised to the fifth. So they kind of like do it to all of them, and then you have that problem. Okay. Notice each of them individually, you multiply exponents together. The one that tends to get most people is this part right here. When you type it in your calculator, you need to make sure that you are putting parentheses around the negative 2, because negative 2 to the fifth power is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Okay? And then that's going to end up being negative 32. And that's what the final answer is going to look like. Now, I'm going to go a little slower. We're going to go through a couple of these. So let's look at these in our notes here. So let's go ahead and write down this first problem. And I will show you how I end up doing these. So the first thing I do on these problems is I'm going to put all my exponents on the inside. So again, this is power property. Notice on the inside, we do not have any add or subtract. If you had an addition or subtraction sign in there, it no longer is the power property. So the negative 4 has an exponent of 1. The n has an exponent of 1. Okay? So we are going to do these. So the first one, for the negative 4, 1 times 4 is 4. There's its exponent. For the n, 1 times 4 is 4. And then for the m, 2 times 4 is 8. We are multiplying our exponents here. Okay? Then the only thing I have to do is figure out what 4 to the 4th power is. Okay, and negative 4 raised to the 4th power is 256. Now, I do want to point this out at this point is this is correct. Okay, some people will write it like this. M to the 8th, N to the 4th. Those are the exact same thing. Okay, there's no difference between those two problems. Okay, let's look at this one together. 3ab squared in parentheses raised to the second power. So, again, first thing I'm going to do is put my exponents on bases that don't have them. So those are ones. Okay, for the 3, 1 times 2 is 2. So it's 3 squared. For the a, 1 times 2 is 2. So it's a squared. And for the b, 2 times 2 is 4. Then the only thing I have to figure out is what 3 squared is. 3 squared, 3 times 3 is 9. And that is the power property. Okay? All right. I want you to go ahead and try these two problems. Let's go ahead and pause the video here and try these on your paper. Okay, for the first one, put my exponents where they're needed. -2 raised to the third power. Notice I put the negative number in parentheses. You need to make sure you do that. Okay, so that's 1 times 3 was 3. For the n, 1 times 3 is 3. And for the m, 4 times 3 is 12. That's the power property right there. The only thing I need to clean up is -2 to the third power. So that's -2 times -2 times -2. And that would be -8. So there's my answer. For number 4, put my exponents where they're needed. Okay, so I'd have 2. 1 times 4 is 4. For the x, 1 times 4 is 4. And for the y, 3 times 4 is 12. The only thing I need to clean up is 2 to the 4th power. And 2 to the 4th power, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, that is 16. Okay, and that is the power property. The last one that we're going to look at is the division property. Okay, and with the division property, problems look like this. Okay, and the general rule is if we are dividing same bases, we get to subtract the exponents. So division, we subtract. So 11 minus 3 would end up being c to the third. Now I want you to notice that you're going top number minus bottom number, okay, when you do this. 11 minus 8. So for this one right here, r to the 5th over r squared is 5 minus 2, which is positive 3. Okay. The one thing I do need to make sure we talk about is you are going to get base numbers, okay, as a fraction. This is just simplifying fraction. Okay, remember we can use the ABC button on the calculators to simplify it. Okay, so 6 over 8 would be 3 over 4. Okay, so that doesn't change. You just want to make sure we're not like accidentally trying to apply this rule to just normal simplification of a fraction. So let's look at a couple problems. So these two problems, what I like to do is kind of break it up into its different pieces. So bases that are numbers first, I know I have a 2 over 4. Okay. The letter m's, I have m to the first and m to the first. And then my n's, I have n to the 7th over n to the 4th. Okay, so those are the 3 mini problems I'm doing inside of this. Now, 2 over 4, that simplifies to be 1/2. Okay? And then I'm going to subtract here. 1 minus 1, that is 0. Now, here's a little thing. Anything raised to 0 property is 1. So essentially, this cancels out. you do not write an M in this problem. It's gone. Okay? Those two things cancel out. The ends, I would have 7 minus 4. And 7 minus 4 is 3. Okay? This would be considered correct. I will tell you in the book, typically they don't write the 1 on top. It would just be n to the third over 2 is the way it would look. Okay? These are the same answer, though. There's no difference between them. Okay? Now, let's look at number 2. Let's break it into its parts. So the numbers are 6 over 2. Now, make sure you organize these correctly. The x's are not like one over top of the other, but my x's, we have x to the third over x to the third. And then my y's, I have y to the first divided by y squared. Okay? So I start. 6 over 2 is 3. Okay? If you want to put 3 over 1, you can. Okay? Sometimes I like to do that when I'm starting, and then I'll clean it up later. The x's are divided. We subtract the exponents. 3 minus 3 is 0, so that the x's are gone. You do not write any x's in this problem. The exponent's 0. For the y's, this is the first time this is happening. 1 minus 2, that's negative 1. Well, since it's a negative 1, what that tells me is that y to the first goes on the bottom. Oops. I did not make it look like I was putting a negative. It means y to the first goes on the bottom. That's what this negative sign tells us. Okay? I would have put it on top. It's a negative, so that means I put it on the bottom. Okay? I typically would clean this up. It would be considered correct if you turn it in like that, but the book will write it like this: 3 over y. They don't write the 1, and they don't write the 1 as an exponent. Okay? So both of those would be considered correct. Want you now to pause the video and try these two problems. Okay, for number 3 here, we have 8 over 6, a to the third divided by a to the third, and b to the third divided by b to the first. So 8 over 6 simplifies to be 4/3. A's are being divided. I'm going to subtract those exponents. So I have 3 minus 3. 3 minus 3 is 0, so I do not write A's in my answer. The B's are divided. I subtract. 3 minus 1 is 2. It's positive, so I put it on the top. I'm done. For number 4. Start with the fraction. The u's, I have u squared divided by u to the first. And for the v's, I have v to the third divided by v to the third. So 3 over 2 cannot be simplified. So I still have 3 over 2. That doesn't change. The u's are divided. I've got to subtract. 2 minus 1 is 1. So I have u to the first. The v's are divided, so I must subtract. 3 minus 3 is 0, so I do not write a v in my answer. Again, the textbook usually does not, they will not put the exponent of 1 on there, so they would have written it like this as their answer. Same thing, okay? There is no difference between the two. All right, last thing that we need to get taken care of is you can start on your assignment. Your assignment is on Alex, okay? Properties of exponents. And we can go ahead and get started on that. Okay? So you have a wonderful day, and we will see you another time. Sayonara.